You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
This is the Options Industry Council's Wide World of Options. Before we start today's show, investors should know that options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. You should not enter into an options transaction until you have read and understood the risk disclosure document, Characteristics and Risks of Standardized Options. This brochure is available by visiting www.optionseducation.org or by calling 1-888-OPTIONS. OIC makes no recommendation with respect to any financial firm. OIC does not make any warranty as to the accuracy, usefulness, timeliness, or the continued availability or existence of information created or maintained by others. Multiple leg strategies involve multiple commission charges. Opinions and strategies expressed by others are not necessarily those of OIC, nor does OIC endorse, warrant, or guarantee products, services, or information described or offered by such firms. Commissions, fees, margins, interest, and taxes have not been included in any of the examples used in this show. These costs impact the outcome of all stock and options transactions. Consult your tax advisor about any potential consequences. None of the information presented in this show should be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell a security or to provide investment advice. Welcome to the Options Industry Council's Wide World of Options. OIC was created in 1992 to educate investors and their financial advisors about the benefits and risks of exchange-traded equity options. OIC offers a variety of resources to those interested in learning more about options, including live seminars, webcasts, and podcasts. Check out www.optionseducation.org for more information. Now here's your host, OIC's Director of Retail Education, Joe Burgoyne.
Welcome to OIC's Wide World of Options. Thanks for joining us for today's show. Let's get started with industry happenings.
It's time to get a handle on the latest developments from the world of options. It's time for Industry Happenings.
In today's industry happenings, we're going to do a quick review on a few key industry numbers. Currently, 12 option exchanges, over 4,200 product listings. The vast majority are individual company listings, followed by a little over, say, 500 ETFs that have listed options. And at this time, there are just over 75 index products. Average daily volume for the industry is just over 17 million contracts a day, and the industry's on pace for its second busiest year in history. Weekly options have become quite popular. Weeklies now can be listed on up to 5 consecutive weeks, and there are currently just under 400 products that list weeklies. Current estimates have weekly option volume ranging somewhere above 25% of average daily option totals. So 12 option exchanges, over 4,200 listings, and over 17 million contracts traded per day. That's what's happening today in the listed options market.
It's time to meet the movers and shakers from the world of options. It's time for Profiles and Perspectives.
Joining us today on Profiles and Perspectives are Mike West and Barry Nobel, part of the senior management team at NASDAQ OMX US. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Doing great. Bar?
Joe, we're doing great today. Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for taking the time to join us again this year. For, listeners who have been with us for the past year, they know that you joined us last year. And for our new listeners, why don't we get into the whole idea of NASDAQ OMX? Why don't we start by talking about, the iconic NASDAQ at Times Square? Tell our listeners about that story.
Yeah, so we're really proud of our Times Square location. And there's one story I'd like to tell, and also something else I'd like to mention regarding that. The story is that It's pretty expensive real estate, and for a while, we thought about shutting it down. But our CEO, who joined us 11 years ago now, did his first opening bell, and the CEO broke out in tears and said, this is what I've worked my entire life to get to. And he realized that we just can't close that. So we're actually renovating the area now to add some more meeting space, and it's going to be even better.
Fantastic. I've had the pleasure to be up there a number of times. Bar?
Yes, what I want to do is I want to invite anyone listening to feel free to stop by the corner of 43rd Street and Broadway in New York. It's a glass building. They can peer in, look at recordings going on. Some of the really interesting financial shows are recorded there at 5 o'clock every day. And, you can take advantage of looking on it or even going online. And if you find it at NASDAQ.com, you can find a part of the site that you can be invited as a guest to watch the opening or closing bells.
Oh, fantastic. 43rd and Broadway.
Corner of 43rd and Broadway, bigger than life.
And also then you can register online with a chance to actually get in and be live.
And watch the bell. I'm not saying you're going to ring the bell.
Sure. Mike?
Also, Joe, regarding our Times Square location, we're the only U.S. exchange operator that's still headquartered in New York City, and we're very proud of that. And it being the finance capital of the world, Times Square being the crossroads of the world. You mentioned it. You said iconic as you started, and that made me smile because we are very, very proud of that location.
Well, it is. The networks are up there, but no one overshadows your presence there on Times Square. And just having been in the industry for so long, it's really it gives you goosebumps to see that when you're in Times Square. So thanks for sharing those stories about it. Let's tell our listeners, let's get into the structure, what NASDAQ OMX is, maybe on a global basis. What is NASDAQ OMX? And then we'll roll into the whole option area.
So NASDAQ OMX, we're a global exchange operator. I think a lot of people will be familiar with the word NASDAQ, and they maybe are a little puzzled by the OMX at the end of it. We operate.
Mike, actually, when you mention that, it just brings it to mind. When I talk to my mom and tell her that I work for NASDAQ OMX, she, with her, Southern Florida accent, say, "What is with the OMX?" She doesn't understand it.
And your response is?
It's a Northern European exchange group, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Riga, and I'd give anyone $1 if they can tell me exactly where Riga is, and I tell her about some of the securities and some of the products that we trade there. And so it's a global exchange.
And Mike, not to steal your thunder, I know you were going to add to that a little bit.
So no, actually Barry covered it very well. I mean, you can certainly say with a straight face the sun never sets on the NASDAQ empire at this point.
That's a good line.
Let's hope our corporate communications people think so. We're involved in everything from IPOs here in the U.S., which I think your listeners are going to be familiar with, to the crawl at the bottom of the screen with stock prices. That's us on the corporate side, that's us on the trading side, that's us on the data side. So not only are we a global exchange operator, but we're in everybody's house when they turn on their TV during the day.
And timeline, I think NASDAQ, 1971 originally, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so it's just evolved from the early 70s to where it is today.
It's evolved tremendously. I've been there for 11 years, and in the 11 years I've been there, it's gone from one equity market to 3 equity markets, 3 options markets, a futures market, and become global with our acquisition of OMX. There's no comparison to where we were 10 years ago and where we are today.
Let's see. You mentioned, and it was a nice segue as far as options. This is OIC's wide world of options. Let's focus on the presence that NASDAQ has in the option space.
Well, we have 3 options, as Mike just represented. We have 3 options markets, 3 distinct options markets.
And you and I are very close to one of them.
We are close to one of them. And, we grew up and on the PHLX, the Philadelphia options market, the Philadelphia Exchange. We also have the NASDAQ options market, which is a completely electronic exchange, and the BX exchange, which is the Boston exchange. Now, the difference of the Philadelphia exchange is that we still have a trading floor. It is in Philadelphia, downtown Philadelphia, on 19th and Market Street. People want to come and see it. They want to visit it. But it represents the physical manual trading represents a very small, less than 5% of our average daily volume. we have about 80 or 90 people down on the floor, and they're still making a good living, and they're still really allowing buyers and sellers to meet. And that's what an exchange really does.
But a far different environment than what we were used to, a few years ago.
A few years ago, we had 500 plus people, so maybe some people estimate 1,000 people on the floor with clerks and ancillary services. But we do more volume than we've ever done with less people. And Mike, to his credit, was one of the originators of the NASDAQ options market, creating the NASDAQ options market. I like to tell a story, and Mike will tell me if it's true or not. They were looking, NASDAQ being an equity exchange, they were looking for people that had some options experience. Looking at Mike, they said, well, you once worked at the Philadelphia Exchange. And that was as close to options experience as they had, so they picked Mike to lead this endeavor of getting into the options space. Am I very far from it, Mike?
I don't know. I don't know how I got picked. That's as good a reason as any, I guess.
So creating the NASDAQ options market, and with the acquisition of the NASDAQ's acquisition of the Philadelphia Exchange, brought real expertise and understanding, and it allowed Mike to reunite with people that he was very, very, very successful with in the past and very comfortable working with currently. And we then together, and again under Mike's tutelage, created the BX exchange, the Boston exchange, which is again completely electronic exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people ask, like, why do you have 3 exchanges? Why do you need 3 exchanges?
I was going to ask you that question.
Right? I'm going to let Mike answer that. No, the reason I believe that, the way that I envision of having 3 exchanges is, let's use an example of Marriott hotels. I think that we all know Marriott. We all understand the brand. But when you stay at Marriott, you can stay at a Ritz-Carlton, which is a Marriott hotel. You can stay at a Courtyard Suites, which is a Marriott, or you can stay at the Fairfield Inn. All good brands under the Marriott umbrella for different types of travelers. So we have 3 different exchanges to represent and how the investing public can best interact with that order at that particular time, and their broker will represent that customer order to best execute on that individual exchange.
And so it's the customer's broker who makes that decision, the best decision on their behalf to send the order to the appropriate exchange.
Yeah, based on, and I think Barry's analogy, not to overextend it, but to extend it, a step further.
We're talking extended stay Marriotts, or
it's features and functionality that are going to be different depending on the hotel, based on the needs that you have, and it's going to be price, and your prices are going to be different based on, again, the needs and features that you have and the features that you want to take advantage of, and that analogy works really well when you look at our 3 options markets.
There's been, the competition in the industry is intense. The growth in the business is intense. Of course, there are risks, there are rewards. What do you see going forward for the industry at NASDAQ, OMX, at the option exchanges? What do you see going forward?
You want to take a stab at that, Mike? I have ideas, but
go ahead.
I see continued hyper-competitive industry. I see continuing lower costs to the customer, the ultimate customer. I see economies of scale, global exchanges like NASDAQ, maybe like our good friends at the New York Stock Exchange, maybe Deutsche Börse, which is a global exchange. I see us being able to be more competitive than ever, driving speed of execution and certainty of execution for the customer to even higher levels. That's what I say.
Okay. Mike?
I would agree with all of what Barry said. And I'd like to add with that, I see us spending a lot of time on risk and controlling the risk that we have, the risk that customers have, the risk that the industry has. There's been a lot of focus in this area in the past few months, and I think it'll get more intense before it gets less intense. Trading happens quickly, and it has to happen safely, and we're committed to that and going to spend a lot of time with that, which I think is good, and I don't see anybody resisting that.
I know both of you are very objective, honest guys. And Barry, what you just laid out is a scenario that really will continue to benefit and actually maybe significantly enhance execution services for the retail customer going forward.
Yes, no question about it. That the retail customer and anyone that trades options today or has traded options for the last few years has experienced the moment they enter their order, if they're self-directed, their order is executed. There is no delay on execution. And if your broker in a managed account is managing your risk and being able to use options to enhance yield, the variety of products that are available to them today are almost tailor-made, not only in the type of product, but the delivery period or AM or PM settlement. I mean, it's a wonderful investors, retail customers environment.
Yeah. Well, I like you called it certainty of execution is how you labeled it. And, nothing could be more important. And then, it's all happening so quickly. The vast majority of the time, it really is a wonderful environment for investors. No doubt about it.
Yeah, we spend an incredible amount of time, especially on our technology side, working on that certainty. Our engineers love to call it determinism. You should know what you can expect, and you should be able to, and you should get what you expect every time. And I'm very happy to say that we think we've achieved that in every area of our execution.
Before we wrap, guys, anything else? I mean, Mike, I know you spoke to risk, in some detail there. Anything else you want to touch on, or do we call it a day?
Highlighting, what is happening at the exchange, and being able to allow, your questions were thoughtful to allow the customer to understand what the exchange is doing. I will say that if the listening audience has any questions, they can have many of them answered at the Options Industry Council's website, which I think is fabulous. It's a fabulous place to go, and you might want to get the address.
That would be at optionseducation.org, and then also you can call Investor Services at 888-OPTIONS, and we're there, 6 of us answering questions and inquiries 5 days a week.
I give that number out 3 days a week, 3 times a week.
Yep.
And I sometimes call just to see what the weather in Chicago is.
or Keller, Texas.
But I find it to be an incredibly useful call center to answer any questions you may have, especially for the person that may never have used options before, and they just want to get over that hump of what it is to do, and to trade that first option contract or the first 2 option contracts against some of the stock that you may have. They're really useful, and they're very, very. It's a wonderful service.
I'm glad you mentioned it, Barry, and that service, by the way, is provided by Barry and Mike. The NASDAQ, along with the other exchanges and the OCC, do fund the initiative of OIC. So, we are there to serve you. And Barry, I appreciate you mentioning the call, the Investor Services Center. They really do a great job down there. So with that, guys, and I tell you, you make it easy because there are so many new initiatives year after year. I mean, the environment, as we said, for the retail investor continues to improve. So you're the ones who deserve the credit, not us. But I want to thank you, Mike, and thank you, Barry, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
It's time to break down the latest option strategies. It's time for Strategy Spotlight.
Joining us today on Strategy Spotlight is Rande Howell, founder of Trader State of Mind and author of Mindful Trading, Mastering Your Emotions and the Inner Game of Trading. Welcome, Rande.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Now, Rande, as a former full-time floor trader, I remember when we met years ago, at a conference, and I remember, your banner, Trader State of Mind, really intrigued me, and I'm really happy that you can join our show today to offer your area of expertise to our listeners.
Well, I am delighted to be here, Joe, and you're always fun to talk to and work with.
Well, how about if we get started? Why don't we start by tell us a little bit about your background as you kind of formed this Trader State of Mind business?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was a performance coach, and I'm a clinical therapist. That's my background in trading. But the performance work, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's lots of bankers here and lots of golfers. And I had been working with performance about, what's stopping you from achieving the next level. And one day, out of nowhere, a guy came into my office, and he was a trader, and said, "I'm having performance issues." And working with him was just eye-opening. I had never seen somebody so motivated. He was just different than regular people. He was asking for more homework. He was really pushing the envelope. And I thought, well, this is really good stuff. I like working with this guy. And it just so happens that he was in a hedge fund. He was a trader at a hedge fund, and he was also teaching people how to trade. And before I know it, as he grew as a trader, he started sending referrals to me. And before I know it, we were heading in this direction. And at one moment, Dolores, my business partner, and I decided that this would be the area we wanted. And it's been fascinating, Joe. You cannot hope to work with a better population of people to understand human emotion, human performance than with traders. It's trading is literally life on steroids, and there's no escape. It's for me, a performance type of guy. It's just wonderful audience to work with.
Well, I only get to do it personally for 23 years, so lots of steroids. I know before we get into some of the specifics in terms of the emotional states of the trader's mind, I know one of your tenets is that success in business before success in trading can actually be a deterrent to, good trading. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's kind of like you have to look at what produces success in one domain, and you have to see, does that mindset that produces that strategy, does it work in another? And it just so happens that a lot of people that have been successful in business or in corporate, they have that kind of alpha feel, it's been taking action, making things happen, doing, and you push. Very successful in business, and it makes things happen. But at the same time, if you take that very same mentality and plug it into trading, you'll blow up. Suddenly, you're the one chasing trades. Suddenly, you're the one over trading. Suddenly, you're the one trying to make things happen. But success in trading is really built around patience. It would be the difference between the way an African lion hunts and the way an American panther hunts. The African lion they chase trades. They have coordinated attacks on the plains, and they are built for attacking on open plains. If you take the same animal, apex predator, if you put him into the forest of North America, he'd starve. If you look at the cougar, what that lion does is it climbs a tree, sits on a ledge, and very patiently waits for the setup to come. Sooner or later, the panther knows the habits of the deer and waits. And when the deer shows up in the setup, then bam, all action takes place. But the work is not of action, doing. The work is of patience, then striking. Same thing. That's the same thing with trading. And that's why a lot of guys who have consummate, they have been very good in business, very good in corporate, by being able to take action, and they bring it over to trading, and that kind of action doesn't work in trading. It's the patience to wait for the setup to show up rather than pushing the envelope. That's really what that means.
Well, that's interesting because, as you suggested, you got these traders, they're steroid alpha, type A's, and you're suggesting this very important state of mind is one of patience. It doesn't seem to go together.
It requires a reworking, and I work with a number of traders, particularly options guys, that have been very, and I'm speaking of one who is very successful in agribusiness, and what they want to do is they'd already been hedging a lot of their stuff already, so they'd already been using options, and they started growing and started trading options. And the same thing is that this guy's been enormously successful, but he's always been able to make things happen. And what happens now is that he still falls into overconfidence, and suddenly he starts making things happen in trading, and he blows up. He blows up 10 grand really easy.
We're talking patience. Are there other key emotional states of mind for the trader specifically?
Absolutely. In trading, the emotions that produce the mind that can trade in probabilities are discipline and impartiality. Those are the ones that when you can get those together, and discipline is, I define discipline as being able to maintain order under pressure. That's what I would call discipline. And impartiality is best described as being able to think clearly under pressure. And these are the two that have to be built, and they can only be built if fear is not present. You have to, and that's one of the big things in learning to trade, is you really have to be able to turn toward the fear and not look at it as an adversary that you want to make go away, but you're saying, the fear is telling me what I need to conquer, what I need to master. And so you turn toward that, and as you learn to regulate the fear, and that's with the whole series of things from breathing to tension reduction, and you're able to bring the arousal element of the fear down, what you do is the impartiality and the discipline, you can actually manufacture it, but before you actually learn how to manage the fear, you can't get the impartiality. It's an enormously easily contaminated emotional state. It's really cool.
I'd like to continue to talk about this fear aspect. As I said, being on the floor for all those years, fear, I won't say dominated, but fear was certainly omnipresent. And, the big order would come in, whether it's calls or puts, and you're scared to death. So, talk to me about, managing this whole idea of fear. Earlier you referenced the setup and then, the cougar pounced. Talk to me a little bit about managing this fear.
Yeah, let's start in the beginning before we actually talk fear, is that your brain is organized to be able to control outcome. Okay, that's and the psychology that comes out of that is going to be the same thing. It's going to want to control outcome either by will or by not being wrong or being right. And the problem, though, in probability is that there is a good chance you're going to be wrong. The entire biological system is built to say, I want to avoid that. And so you feel the vulnerability of possibly being wrong, risking being on the other end, and it just wipes you out. The key, Joe, is that in any system that you'd be learning to produce emotional intelligence, the first step is emotional regulation. Fear is an emotional state that has you believing with certainty that bad things are on the horizon. And that fear state starts dominating thinking. And you'll see that when you see traders hesitate, okay? And
hesitate and hesitate, but also, the term on the floor was get run over. I mean, You got somebody come, that's natural fear. Help me.
Yeah.
Regulate
the thing is what you're doing is you're looking at the biology. Your emotional brain sees that as a threat to death. Actually, it's only psychological discomfort. But if you cannot interrupt the arousal of the emotion, that revving up, that tension in the body, all of a sudden you're sitting there holding your breath, and it's the tension's building. If you cannot interrupt that, the emotion of fear is simply going to hijack mind, and then you become a bucking horse in a burning barn. So literally, what you're looking at when you feel that, oh my God, I can get ran over, you're seized by fear, you're freezing, and that only makes things worse. And yet at the same time, Joe, if you were to look at your body, and this is actually something I do when I'm teaching traders, is I will actually videotape them as they trade. And what they will see fear in their eyes. They will see tension in their body, they will see breath stopped or panting really high. What you're looking at is the arousal of an emotional state. And if you allow that arousal to hit a particular point, it trips over and it's no longer arousing, but it actually starts flooding through your neural system in your body, and all of a sudden you are hijacked. And understand, literally the kind of thinking that you're capable of at any particular moment is based on the emotional state you're in. So the first key, like for instance, if you're on the floor, you could be trained so that as you feel all this stuff beginning to happen, you catch yourself and you go, okay, this is where I have to volitionally start breathing differently, diaphragmatically, because every emotional state is going to have a breathing signature and a tension signature. And if you disrupt that signature, like with fear, it's holding a breath or it's breathing in the top third of the lung. What you're doing there is basically you are saying, okay, what we're doing is we're taking all the oxygen away from the brain, we're putting it into the big muscles, and we're ready to avoid, okay? And you're ready to run. You're ready to, and if you need to, fight. But the thing is, you're sitting there and you're going, that's all based on the arousal, the tension buildup, that breathing buildup. If you disrupt that, you can actually control the intensity of the emotion. And when you do that, it's no longer a runaway freight train, and you have the first step in being able to get the mind back that can manage that uncertainty, which is what the real fear was, is that, oh my God, what's going to happen? I can no longer control outcome. I may die. And over on the psychological side, it's discomfort. It may be a loss, but it's not your death. Separating and distinguishing those two, psychological discomfort and biological threat, is absolute at the very core of how you go about operating it. And I've worked with enough floor traders to know that, you know, they smell the emotion, they see the emotion and the players around them, and they take advantage of that. And that's how they become such great traders. And it's also why they have such a hard time moving from being on the floor to working with screens. I've had a lot of guys saying, I know behind this screen, this stuff's happening, but I'm not there. I can't witness it. It's just harder. I don't see the players. I don't see and smell the emotions. So, interesting.
Yeah, you know, the average Joe or average Jane on the street, are they all kind of open to, not open, but able to learn your teachings, or is it a particular mindset, a particular maybe a human personality that, you know, will gain from your teaching?
I would actually say the vast majority of people can learn emotional regulation skills, okay? I mean, there are some people that have organic problems in their brain that are up and beyond that. To be honest with you, the major problem I see, and not just my work, but when you're teaching emotional regulation skills, and is there is a phenomenon biologically called self-preservation, and you really don't want to change. You want to find something external to the self that can make everything happen. That's kind of the holy grail type of thinking. But when you finally realize that, what happens is that I need to be the change that I need to be looking for. And ultimately, you're probably going to have to unlearn very successful patterns from your brain solving problems earlier in your life. You're going to have to relearn the patterns. And, you know, it's not that difficult from a conceptual standpoint. But when you're changing material at the level of belief, and you recognize that belief is wired into neural circuitry, that becomes a challenge, because you do have to learn the emotional regulation skills. I don't care who you are, you're going to have to learn to cool down under pressure. And at the same time, once you understand those physical skills, you also have to come to the moment where you have to start looking into the mind and saying, what are the beliefs that I'm holding that are stopping me from performing at a higher level? And that's, Joe, that's the ticket. And most people, they start feeling very vulnerable when they start getting close to the self-limiting beliefs that are driving their trading. And it's not rocket science. Any trader you work with, you'll start discovering that underneath all that stuff, all that bravado, and when you're trading, you can't escape it, will be a sense of inadequacy, a sense of mattering, a sense of worth, and a sense of powerlessness. Those are the big four that all the self-learning beliefs are hooked into. When you see, particularly with retail traders, you'll see a lot of them, they really have perfectionistic thinking. They want to be right. And their culture and the educational systems has taught them not to be wrong. And you get into trading, and no matter how good you are, no matter how right you are, you can still be wrong a good bit of the time. And that flies in the face of the way the neural system has been developed to maintain a sense of adequacy. And so all of a sudden you start seeing people really beating themselves up and, telling them that they'll never make it and all that kind of good stuff. And when really what happens is that you have to get away from the outcome-driven, perfectionistic or control thinking and start getting into probability thinking. Those are the guys who are making the money. Those are the ones who, when they make that transition, those are the guys who learn how to make money. And they're not necessarily as skillful a trader as some of the guys that have great knowledge, but they know how to use that. They've learned how to use that knowledge under pressure. But practically anybody can learn it unless you have a serious problem. It's just that you have to commit yourself and you have to say, I have enough passion for trading that I'm willing to retweak the way my mind works to be able to move from certainty-based thinking to probability-based thinking. Anybody can do it, nearly. You have to decide you want to.
It makes a lot of sense. Is there a typical period of time that it takes for somebody to learn these, regulated skills?
Yeah, I have personally found, and understand, I come from a public mental health background where I worked with populations from literally violent criminals to at-risk youth to people with profound anxiety and anger management problems and addictions, I might add. And what we basically do back then is it takes 3 to 4 months to actually go in and change a self-limiting belief that is causing problems, okay? And the self-limiting beliefs in trading that we're looking for are the ones that are causing your trading account to go down or stay stagnant. I found the same rough estimate like with the course I teach, my individual course, it's 3 to 4 months long, and it's intentional to be 3 or 4 months long because it's not an event. And until the trader comes to a moment where he realizes that changing your head is not going to happen on a single event, that you have to really work at it. And it takes about 3 or 4 months. And to me, that's pretty short when you consider that you've had decades and decades of thinking in a way that is not going to produce success in trading. And again, I want to separate people who have experienced success outside of trading. That's a great mind. It's very well adapted for success in that other domain. But the success mind in trading is just different. It really is. It's fundamentally different. Again, it's based on patience and probability rather than in action and control. Completely different animals, but anybody can learn it. About 3 or 4 months is what it takes.
Oh, I agree with you. 3 or 4 months, I think, is darn quick. So good for you to have been able to develop, something like this to be able to really, change a trader's state of mind.
Well, they do the work. They do the work. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. They do the hard work of change. And it takes work.
Well, and anything worth doing certainly takes work. I could talk to you for a long time about this, Randy. I mean, I find it very, very interesting, and I hope our listeners do as well. Some of the things, just in looking at some of your material, biology of the brain versus psychology of the mind. The mind follows the brain. I find these to be very interesting sayings. What do you mean by some of this?
Okay, I'm gonna give you an answer that may confuse you even more. When you take a look at the brain only, okay, thought to the brain is a behavior, okay? Literally what you're looking at, thought arises out of all these electrochemical reactions going on between neurons. However, when mind arises, there's a neurobiology that we call symbolic representation, where suddenly there are symbols placed on that electrical current, okay? And suddenly I can look at my computer screen and see the Skype. I can see my computer screen, and I can see symbols. It is this magical process between the brain as electrical current and the mind that is brought forth out of that brain. And that brain is organized around a couple, it wants to avoid uncertainty. That's what it wants to do. It's been organized and evolved to do that for countless generations. At the same time, when you get into trading, what you're doing is we have to take that evolution and we have to redesign what that brain can do, the way it can think. And suddenly what you're doing is you're realizing that all thinking is emotional state dependent. So learning how the emotional brain works and being able to manage the emotional states that you're experiencing under pressure, keywords, under pressure, that is what's creating the particular mind that you're bringing into a moment. And Joe, what I do is, when you get past all the emotional regulation stuff, what I'm actually doing is I'm recognizing that in the same way that self-criticism and judgment and fear, these are simple emotional programs in the brain. It's not like you can just magically make them disappear. However, in the same way that there is fear and self-criticism within the brain, so is there discipline, so is there courage, so is there self-soothing or self-compassion, and so is there impartiality. These literally are programs wired into circuits. And what I do is I teach people going, okay, once you recognize that you're always in an emotion, there is no such thing as not being in emotion unless you're dead. And we don't want that. And you're going, okay, and out of that emotion comes the kind of thinking that I do. So the real thrust of my work is about, okay, what I want to do is I want to bring together the emotional programs, learn how to fire them so that I have I kind of have a concoction of emotions that's producing the kind of zone type thinking required for trading. And that can be done. I see it all the time. And I use a process out of neurobiology called memory restructuring to do that, where we take memory and we recognize that there is no video memory. Is that memory really is the brain taking an experience and encoding it in a particular way, and that's how you have your current memory. It's also why eyewitness counts are useless in court, mostly. What we do is we take experience where we know that these emotional states had to occur. They're not wishful thinking like with visualization and affirmations. You know they had to happen. And what I do is I teach you how to re-encode that so that under pressure, you can bring forward that set of emotions that produces a kind of thinking that can be successful in probability and uncertainty thinking. It's really cool stuff, but the brain and the mind it's so cool. And when you recognize, oh my gosh, the quality of my thinking is based on the emotional state I'm in. You go, wow. And then you suddenly realize, like guys who are, say, in trades, and they kind of lose their stuff, and suddenly they have such a great fear of missing out on profits that arises in brain and mind that it makes sense to them in the moment that they're going to get out of that trade with a little bit of profit. Then they get out, they cool down, and they're back in a rational state of mind, and they go, what in the world was I thinking? Why did I do that? That's not in my trading plan, blah, blah, blah. The thing is the emotion overrode your best intentions, and the emotion caused the kind of thinking, and out of that thinking came action. That's the whole key. And again, you can learn this stuff. It's not really that difficult, but you do have to have passion for trading, and you have to have a enormous desire to be able to build a mind for trading rather than going, okay, I'm just going to find new gimmicks. I'm going to find new toys, more stuff. And practically every trader I know has an enormous amount of stuff in their trading room. They have indicators, they have signals, they have manuals, and ultimately they keep running through that looking for the Holy Grail. And at some moment they realize that the Holy Grail is them. except it's in the rough, and it's going to have to be. You're going to have to work on it.
Amen. Well, I'll tell you what. If I said it once on the trading floor, I said it 5,000 times. If I went back to school, I would have majored in psychology, rather than business, because I just think you are highlighting such a critically important area for the trader here. It's just it's really, I hope our listeners find it to be as interesting as I do. Randy, how can our listeners reach out to you, contact you, if this is something that they'd like to pursue?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. First of all, you just simply go to my website. It's www.tradersstateofmind, all one word. And what I would encourage is when you get there, you're going to notice that it's a very content-rich website. The first thing I would, right on the home page, what you'll see is that you can download a free ebook of mine, okay? And it's not my mindful trading book, but it's a free ebook of 2 or 3 years worth of articles I've written for various publications. And it's all, and people, it's like you really see yourself in these articles, because I tend to write from the mind of the trader. That's the first thing. The second thing is that on the website, you have access to over 35 videos that I've done that break down trading into certain aspects. And what I'm doing is I'm walking you through it. The other thing is there's a lot of articles that I've written that are also posted there. That's where people start, and they'll spend hours on my website looking for that. And from there, when you start saying, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, this is really interesting stuff, maybe I ought to look further, then it comes down to, get the book, Mindful Trading. That I actually show you the process. I describe the process that I use to produce this kind of transformational change. And from there, if you're still interested, come to my free webinars. I have at least once a month, and I've done them with you folks. They're, and I have them, they're highlighted on the web in various places. And once you do that, you go to a couple of the free webinars, you start really seeing that I'm beginning to see this interconnection between the brain, the emotion, and mind. I'm beginning to see how that works. And then if you're really interested, and if you're going, okay, I see this guy can do it, then we have group courses and we have individual courses that people look into. But the first thing is check it out. Start seeing the foundations that I use, because I really do teach a process, an interlocking process, and it's not magic. It's not magic at all. It's you actually learn to have the tools in your hands that can literally change your mind and your basically the way you interpret. And Joe, I'll tell you this. This would be a good way of saying it, is that in neurobiology, we have a way of saying this. It's called, you have never experienced reality. You have never experienced the markets. What you have experienced is your brain taking data from the sensorial modalities and creating a virtual representation of reality of the markets. That's what you're testing when you trade, the virtual representation you have of the markets, the belief structure that you have, and you have a black and white barometer of whether or not those beliefs, that representation you have, is accurate in your trading account. If you have a belief system that dances well with the markets, you're going to see that trading account grow. If you see bleeding in your trading account or stagnancy in your trading account, what you know is the belief system that you're projecting onto the markets is not working, and it needs to change. Now, that's assuming that you can trade profitably on paper, so that you know how to trade, and all of a sudden you realize, okay, I get it. It's the psychology, it's the beliefs I'm projecting onto the markets that's having such an impact, negatively or positively, on my trading account. But the trading account cuts out everything. To me, it's your best friend about cutting to the chase about what needs to happen and how to go about doing it.
Well, Randy, I've really enjoyed the conversation. As I said, I hope our listeners have too. It is www.tradersstateofmind.com, one word. And Randy, I just want to thank you very much for joining us today on Strategy Spotlight.
You are so welcome. It's been my pleasure.
It's time for a nostalgia break. It's time to take a look back.
In today's Looking Back segment, we're going to focus on the S&P 500's performance on a monthly basis. Historically, what are the strongest and what are the weakest months on a performance basis? Now, according to Yardeni Research, over the past 85 years, now that's a span that covers from 1928 through 2013, July and December are tied as the two strongest months with an average percentage change of plus 1.5%. Now, the weakest month for average change is September at minus 1%. Only two other months, May and February, have negative average monthly changes, and small ones at that, at minus 0.2 and minus 0.1, respectively. Now, let's go back to the plus months. April at 1.3% and January at 1.2% are the other 2 months where average percentage change exceeds plus 1%. The remaining 5 months range on the plus side between plus 0.4 and plus 0.8. Now, for those of you wondering about October, the month many believe is the nastiest month for the market, it's actually a plus month with the smallest average percentage change of all the plus months at plus 0.4%. So statistically, over the past 85 years, 9 of 12 calendar months show a gain, and the average percentage gain is plus 0.9%, while the 3 down months show an average decline of just over minus 0.4%. So July and December have been the 2 biggest winning months, with September the biggest loser. No guarantees going forward. That's today's Looking Back, 1928 to present. Thanks for joining us today.
You've been listening to the Options Industry Council's Wide World of Options. If you have questions about anything you heard on today's show, email Joe Burgoyne at options@theocc.com. Or you can call OIC's Investor Services at 1-888-OPTIONS. Interested in connecting with OIC on social media? Like the OIC page on Facebook. Follow them on Twitter at options_edu. Or join their group on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out our next episode of The Wide World of Options.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.